You're listening to the Emissary Authors Podcast, where we help faith-driven founders and entrepreneurs tell the stories that matter. This episode was made possible in part by the Emissary Author Workshops and our title of the week, The Hope of War, from Emissary author Larry Cripps. Go to publishwithemissary.com/workshops and thehopeofwar.com for more details. And welcome back to the Emissary Authors Podcast, where we help faith-driven founders, executives, and entrepreneurs tell the stories that matter. My name is Paul Edwards. Joining me, I'm excited to have on the show my co-host and partner in crime, Jason Todd. Jason, great to see you again, my friend. How are you?
It's really good to be here. And I am genuinely excited about this author because not only does he have a great book called Rose Therapy, but a great message behind it and sort of a second act to his professional career in this idea of selling this book, Rose Therapy, and all the speeches that he gives. But also, I think what's really special about Ron is that he was Emissary's first author.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited to follow up with him about a year later since his book came out.
So let's get to it. Ron Daniels joining us on the Emissary Author Podcast. Ron, how are you, my friend? Great to see you again.
Good. I'm good. Welcome to Gadwell Abbey, my rose garden, and thrilled to be out here. Going to be out here this weekend with hopefully 300 to 400 people. So that we're expecting, and hopefully the weather will hold up. It looks pretty good, about 82 and partly cloudy. So I'm looking forward to that. That way I get to mix with other gardeners and people and opportunity to sell some books. Last year I sold 60 or 70 books. I think it's around 60 something books in my open garden.
Wow.
And, but it was pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that because Paul, you know me, and Jason, you know, I like to be around people and especially gardeners. They come in here with smiles on their faces and questions. And my daughter, bless her heart, she will not allow me to come into the garden when we have this open garden because of she wants me to meet and greet everybody that comes, which is pretty important. And then a plus, if it's when you have an open garden and you're greeting people, I have to kind of do double duty with my book, Rose Therapy, because, you know, they want that. So I've got people that's going to help me with that this weekend, get their names, their money, and all I got to do is sign them. And so I've learned a whole lot from you guys, mainly, about how to do this. And I've just been having a ball this past year. And the book, the presentations I give, it just drives the book. And I'm trying to balance my life with it because, as Paul knows, and you too, Joe, I have passion for this. And when you got a non-gardening wife and it's kind of tough, you have to kind of balance all this. So all my presentations that I book, I try to put them spread out enough to where I can spend time with my family also.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening on the audio version of the podcast, Ron is sitting outdoors in his beautiful rose garden, which I've personally visited. Got the opportunity to tour through it and see just how much of a master he is with growing and caring for roses. And of course, if you're watching on the video, this is the book. You often see it in my background. Now we got 2 copies of it on the screen. Rose Therapy: My Journey of Growing and Caring for Roses. And Ron came to me in late 2022, and we started talking about this. And when Jason and I launched Emissary together, Ron was kind enough to be our very first author. So, Ron, I want to start there and go back in time a little bit, and let's talk about how this all came together and what was it that was happening in your life that you decided, it's about time I wrote a book about this. And then, our mutual friend, Aaron Walker, put us together. So take us back in time to.
Yeah. Well, I woke up last year and figured out I was an aging rosarian. The way I had some great people around me, and Aaron Walker's always been there for advice for me. He didn't give me a whole lot of business advice, but I've always looked up to him just how to treat people. He's just unbelievable how he connects with people, and that's kind of his business if you stop and think about it. And so I trust him so much. So I had a bunch of people, some of my family, my daughter in particular, people that I associate with and master gardeners and rose society said, Ron said, you do this so well and you explain it and make it so simple that you need to write a book on that. And I said, well, I'm no writer. I don't know. I can tell you, I can sit down and show you and tell you, but it was all foreign to me. So in November of 2022, I called Aaron. I never will forget it. And I called him. I said, Aaron, I need your advice. He said, well, I'm here for you. And he's been such a great friend. And I said, Aaron, I'm thinking about writing a book or, recording this stuff I've learned over the last 30 years and been a gardener all my life, but grew roses for 30 years. And Aaron said, well, Ron, are you doing this for money? I said, no, I've been blessed with a business that I enjoyed it. It's been business for 42, 43 years. It continues. No, I'm definitely not doing it for money. I'm doing it because I don't want this stuff to be forgotten or buried. And I want to record this. And he said, well, I got just the person for you. And I said, well, where does he live here in Nashville? He said, nope, he's in the state of Washington. I said, state of Washington? I said, how are we going to make that? He said, Ron, he'll make it work. You just get a hold of it. And so that's where it began. And of course, we worked all winter on that. And by spring, we had it all, put together. And Jason, you come in there and help publish a thing and put it all together and put it out. The cover, was the name in the cover was really important to me. And when I first got the cover, I'll never will forget this. I said, this isn't my garden. Because when you garden, you think about putting your own stuff out in front of people,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, but and then Jason explained to me, he said, that's a picture of somebody coming to your garden. They're not there physically, but a place to sit in the garden. Well, that tells a story there. That's pretty good. And then the roses that were in that picture, it was so weird. I knew every one of them I've grown today. That's what's so strange about it. And I thought, oh my gosh. And so I kind of had some issues with that. And then till y'all explained the meaning of it and what it said, I get a lot of compliments on that cover. I mean, a lot of them. And believe it or not, people pick the book up and they feel soft. I never thought of that. And even the paperback does. And so we accomplished that. And then I've had this rose therapy thing, and I never mentioned it in the book. I talk about it here on the podcast, and I talk it on several times on Road Chat podcast before, where I came up with that name. Several years ago, in fact, when I moved into this house 10, 11 years ago, I was building this new garden, and I just bought maybe 20 or 30 rose bushes. They were sitting out here in the garden, not planted in the ground yet. And my wife comes flying out of the house and throws her hands up and says, if you buy one more rose bush, get you some therapy. So rose therapy, this is cool. So I started using it on my email and email address and seemed like most people liked it. And if you live long enough, you get some kind of therapy. I know I've had other therapy, marriage therapy and personal therapy and everything else. So we accomplished as a team, Jason and Paul and myself, we accomplished what I had the vision for. And Paul would always tell me, he said, this is your book. We want to do it your way. We want it to sound like you. We want you to bring out the points of the book that you feel comfortable with. And I think we accomplished that. And I don't know if Jason will remember this and Paul, is once we finished this book and it came out, I told them, I said, you know what? If I don't sell 2 books, this has already been a success because I've been able to record this stuff I've learned in 30 years and put it in writing and explain it to the point to make it simple for the reader. Growing roses, most people look at it as being complicated. And most people that in their business life, it's not simple. You got to learn it, So you always look back on the book and say, well, I wonder, what if I put that story in there about my wife where the name came from? I don't know why I missed that. Keep peace at home, I think. But
If you unfortunately we don't get the privilege of having Francine Daniels on the show today. See,
Yeah.
one of the reasons we brand Ron's book as combining Southern charm and storytelling with gardening is because they are quintessential Southerners. And if you've ever heard Francine talk, I hear her sometimes in the background when I'm on the phone with Ron. Sounds exactly like.
Oh yeah, we were born and raised right in Nashville, Tennessee, and then all our parents and grandparents, they come off the farm. So I was the first child born in a hospital, to put it that way. And so I lived in a household of 1,250 square foot with grandparents and parents in the same home. There were 9 of us.
Yeah.
So I was the first one to leave. I run out of there at 18 and a half because there wasn't room,
Yep.
But I gained a lot from it. That's where I got a lot of my gardening DNA is from my family. And I talk about it in the book and give them credit for it. And for a lot of them, especially my grandparents, gardening to them was it was survival gardening. They wasn't doing the my grandfather would appreciate what I do, but he would probably laugh at it. He said, "Can you eat them?" I said, "Well, no, not. Yeah, you really can. There's a whole recipe on using roses in recipes, but a whole book on it. But he would kind of laugh at it. My father was more into perennials, and that's what roses are. And he grew more flowers, but he had a garden too. But my background is so poor. We were very poor. And, well, we really were rich because I had my grandparents was great to be around because they taught me one thing that they come through the Depression years, and they taught me one thing that a lot of kids don't learn today, and that's to be content right where you are today.
Yeah.
Be happy. And my parents were like that, but my grandparents they were like on steroids because they didn't waste anything, and that everything had a purpose. But gardening was our focus in our family because we had a huge vegetable garden. My dad had a huge perennial garden, and he grew a few roses, and he lived long enough to see me get into this. And he said, "I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do it," he said. But really, his teaching and other family members' teaching led me to this, which I talk about a lot in the book about mentorship, how strong it is. And still, when I do my presentations to this day, I describe the book this way. The book, I'll tell you in the book how to grow roses and pitfalls, but I also will tell you about membership. And then in the book, I talk about sharing this information and my garden, which I'm doing this weekend, and mentoring people. I try to mentor 2 or 3 people a year at some level. And some of them, I had a girl come in here last year in my open garden, and she walked in the gate. She said, "Mr. Daniels, I've been following you for a year and a half and never met you." And I said, "How'd you follow me?" And I didn't really have a good Facebook page. Well, I had a Facebook page, but I didn't have a lot of good. So I just followed you on PBS stations, on a volunteer gardener, and some of the local stuff you've done at the lawn and garden shows. I've been to your workshop. She never introduced me, but she learned how to grow roses just by that alone. And she come to never been to my garden. She got here. The garden started at 10. She was here at 9:15. And she bought my first book here in my garden. And I've got a picture of her. And, of course, the book's already written, of course. I couldn't put her in there, but I got her in my presentations.
Yeah.
So I tell people, this lady here learned just by following me, and and I never will have met that girl. She lived 30-something miles south of here. I never will run into her, probably, more likely, unless I did a presentation down her way somewhere. So the book is really, really written. And Aaron said this, it'll give you a lot more credibility in the gardening world.
Yeah.
And I can sit here the past year. I mean, I made that trip to Florida for 2 months to stay with my nephew, and I booked 7 presentations down there myself. And it don't matter where you're at. The book is good no matter what. And as you know, Paul, I don't know if Jason said, but I got a great review from ARS, the American Rose Society, by a lady I have total respect for. It's been growing roses for 40 years. So if she gives you that kind of review, it means something. And I didn't ask her to do it. ARS asked her to do it. And Paul, you know how long we worked on that. We worked on that over a year to make that happen.
Yep.
And I don't know yet how it's going to affect. We're doing the advertising in there monthly now, every 2 months, monthly. And I don't know how it's going to affect sales or whatever, but I'm getting the message now out in the United States, between 800 and 900 rose societies and stuff like that. So, and we have about 10 to 12,000 members in the American Rose Society that are members. So hopefully, it'll get out there, and a good barometer is the emails I get and the invitations to go speak, and now I've got to speak. I'm going back to a place I went, didn't even have the book over a year and a half ago up in Orangeburg, Kentucky, at the Western Kentucky Botanical Gardens. They restored old rose garden. They had me come up and do a presentation, and I gave them a game plan on how to restore it. Now they've restored it, and they've sent me pictures. They restored it. They want me come up to the dedication next month to do a presentation and a book signing. They're going to invite everybody. I mean, she said close to 300 people.
Wow.
And they are, and they'll actually, my speaking fees have went up because of it and all. But my wife, she always tells me, she said, "You're giving that stuff away for free." My wife, that's it, honey, this is something I love. It's my passion. But that's a direct, and they're excited about my book because they went online and looked at it and all that, but they're excited about getting it. And so that's a direct result from everything that's happened the past year. And so, but I've had, just like I said, guys, I've just had a ball with this and continue to do it. I can't wait to this weekend because I'm going to see people I hadn't met yet that are coming. And Caitlin, my daughter's been so good. What she'll do, anywhere I speak, I get the president's email address. And then last week we sent out invitations to all these presidents, and they tell the members, and that's where they come. And they'll come from 150, 200 miles away.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. My fellow Rosarians don't believe that many people come to my garden till they come to my garden. So, yeah.
I think the contentment that you mentioned there, that you got from your grandparents and your parents, Ron, has really served you well, because you know that what you're sharing is valuable, and yet you're not counting on people to come through for you to share it. You're just sharing it from a place of strength and abundance and joy and all of that. Yeah. And then of course, I was doing a post yesterday sharing a little excerpt from the end of your book.
Yeah.
And you pointed out how, even when COVID-19 came,
they're not coming to get me, guys.
Yeah, the police in the background.
We got a construction site up. That's probably my son-in-law. They got construction guys up here, and they fall off the roof up there about every day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, guys. Sorry.
No, but I was going to mention during COVID, right? You had a place to be outside, and everybody else was huddled indoors. That was the excerpt I was sharing from your book.
Absolutely.
Yesterday.
My wife went stir crazy, but we had a place to go where it was safe, and I didn't have to think about it, had to get into it. And then a lot of my fellow gardeners had the same thing. We all talk about the same thing, about how it was good therapy to be in the garden during the pandemic, and in the gardening world. Oh my gosh, everybody, the nurseries business boom. I mean, they run out of plants. And gardening in general is billions and billions of dollar thing all over the country. A lot of people, not just my age, but a lot of people into gardening more than all different levels. And I find that out when I do my presentation. And but the whole thing about when I do my presentation, what really, really gets me is when they send me a picture of a bouquet. They maybe buy 3 or 4 roses. They cut a bouquet and bring it and put it on their table, and take a picture of it, and they email them to me. And then that they've kind of got the bug. They've seen the results of this. And then I get a bunch of them all the time where they say, I never would grew roses if you hadn't made it sound so simple. But really, being a American Rose Society consulting rosarian, that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to make everything complicated. The most complicated thing I talk about in the book is pH.
Yeah.
It's important in growing everything. And soil. I mean, them two things are very important. And but I don't get into breaking down the soil. I don't get into, I talk about organic and inorganic fertilizers. I think if you don't keep it simple, people are not going to take the hobby up.
Yeah.
And I've learned about gardening in general and hobbies in general. If you don't have success on the front end, you're going to the next thing.
Yeah.
You have to give them some success. I always tell the new members, I say, I'm going to mentor you and I'm going to teach you and you come to my presentation, but you'll take these facts and you'll find your own method to get to that rose. And they do. Like John Wendler, the guy that did my forward in the book, he never grew a rose.
Yeah.
And he has almost 80 now and beautiful roses. And he, but said, John, I'm going to teach you and mentor you, but you're going to have your own method of getting to that rose.
Yeah.
And I did. I had a great mentor, but I took some of his stuff he taught me. And you got to understand this hobby is changing. The roses are changing. The fertilizers are changing from every now and then. And the methods are changing according to where you live and what zone you live in. So
and there are other things, Ron, that are not changing and in a good way, right? Because what you talk about in the book is timeless stuff. Like you got to find a mentor.
Yeah.
And you got to find an outlet like you did with the weddings and the floral ministry.
Yeah.
Church too, right? It's like, you're growing the roses, but what's really happening is you're building these pathways of connection with people that is just, it pays dividends. Like,
if I write another book, it's going to be the cause and effect of that ministry because, God's put me in the path of, like during the pandemic, for instance, and I mentioned in the book, I was locked up in this house. My daughter was bringing food to the front door. Of course, I had the garden, which we talked about a while ago, but I learned different ways to minister with my flowers.
Yeah.
I had this lady just call me out of the blue. She said, Ron, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm out here working in my garden. I got all kinds of roses in the cooler in here. And she said, I've got a ministry I think might work right now. And I said, what is that? She said, well, my daughter's a nurse over here at the local hospital, and they're working 16 hours a day. They really, what they were doing back then.
Yeah.
Said, could you make some flowers for them nurses? And I said, well, sure. So I put them together. Of course, I couldn't come in the hospital. I had to deliver them to the emergency room. Can you believe that? I come in the emergency and leave them out there at the sliding glass doors. And I did that for several months. And I got emails and calls from them nurses, people I didn't even know. In fact, I never told you this story, but I got COVID that November, and I went in the emergency room for 6 hours. Two of the nurses and one of the doctors, female doctors, that took care of me. I had no chest stuff, and I had a sinus infection, but I did have COVID, and they kept me in the emergency room for 6 hours. My wife couldn't even come in there, and but them ladies received some of my roses later, and I didn't designate them to go there. They just took them and spread them out. So I had opportunities, and Mr. Curtis, who mentored me, said, always look. I think that's one of the reasons why he was so successful in this hobby, because he always shared them. He shared his knowledge. He shared his garden. He shared his roses, and he taught all that to me. And then in the book, I talk about having a purpose for growing them. And I always tell new growers, I said, you need to find the kind of roses you like and have a purpose. It makes it easier when you're doing the work part of it.
Yeah.
Know that there's some end results. But like I said, there's a lot of opportunity to share information. And a lot of people say, what do you do in the winter? Well, in the winter, I'm teaching and dreaming about spring, and the beauty part about being down in Florida, they're a couple months ahead of us. So when I was down there in February, they're already getting roses.
Yep.
Here I am down here with my roses to now, the first week in May or whatever. So it was pretty good. I learned a lot down there. And like I've told you, Paul, every time I do a presentation, you think you've heard every question, but you hadn't. you learn from them presentations, and that keeps you pretty sharp, not only doing presentations, but gardening. I'll have somebody come up to me and tell me some stuff that I've been doing this 30 years. I never heard this question.
Yeah.
So then we got a lot of people moving here. Well, they're coming back after another construction worker. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. But
Law enforcement and
our local
first responders making an unscheduled appearance on the Emissary Authors Podcast.
I'm out. Well, Paul, I tell you, I'm out away from everything. So we got Mercy Disc was coming up here. But anyway, I knew this was going to happen, but that's all right. But that's how social this garden is.
Yeah.
I had people walk up off the street. I mean, not necessarily an ambulance, but they come up here. But anyway, the book has just been a fun thing to have and do. And I tell you, my wife says, I love the book. I said, why? She says, I love it because when somebody emails or calls you, you can say, go to page 99.
Yeah.
And they can read about fertilization. Or if you want to learn about some of the ministries, go to this page. Or if you want to see some pictures of Gadwell Abbey, go to this page. So, people like down in Florida, they've never been to my garden, but I had pictures, which I've added. And then at the end of my presentations, they give me 10 or 15 minutes to talk about my book. And so it's just been a total, I just had so much fun with, and never would dream 2 or 3 years ago that this would happen. I just said, no, that's not going to happen. Well, if you told me 10, 15 years ago I was going to be speaking as much as I do, I'd say you're crazy, because we all know the 2 biggest fears in life, don't we?
Yeah.
Death and public speaking.
That's right.
And my sons have come to they said, Dad, we just didn't know you had that in you, because I never did much of that. And I did my mom's eulogy, and they said, Dad, we didn't know you could even do that.
Yeah.
My boy's a corporate guy. Well, one of them runs my business, and the other's a big corporate guy in pharmaceuticals, and they do a lot of presentations, especially my oldest boy. I said, well, if you got a passion for something and you love it and you believe in it, it's easy to talk about.
Exactly.
I have to have people. I designate somebody in my presentation to be the time police, because I'll go down some stories, because I got a lot of them, So the one other thing I wanted to ask about, Ron, because we talked about this before, you go into detail. Your career was in construction, playground equipment, and all that sort of thing. We're still doing that big time.
And you mentioned that having the rose garden was a place to unwind from the stresses of construction. Is a very stressful industry, and then you had this haven, this quiet place of tranquility you could go to. So, and as we talked about that in some of our sessions, I remember Jason pointing out, this is something really important, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like all they ever do is work, and they don't have a place like that they can go. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I have never drank. I've never smoked. I've never done drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I've usually did most of my stress relief when I was younger through recreation ball. I played on travel softball teams and travel basketball teams up to I was 55 or 58. And then my knees gave way and I got 2 new knees. But yes, the garden, before I even come into the home, I've had 3 gardens, this is my 3rd one. Before I even come into the garden, I'm in the house when I'd work. And I worked long hours when you first start a business. Y'all got to know that. Y'all work a lot.
Yep.
And, so I was working 10-hour days, and I'd come in the house, and I had 2 little boys, and I'd go through the garden first just to calm down. Construction is real stressful, mobilization and dealing with contractors and site conditions, and it's all kinds of stuff that you can't predict every day. Making sure all your employees are on the same page, and all the things they bring to the table. So it was very stressful. And I was very fortunate to get through that period of time to have this gardening, because I'd gardening all my life. I seen my dad and my grandparents and my mom even. She worked some there when I was in high school. The gardening thing was kind of a stress reliever for them. I didn't talk about it a whole lot in the book, but they used that. They wasn't on no meds and nothing like that. So I kind of seen it growing up. So I kind of learned it. My wife, she was the exact opposite. Her family was like the circus. I mean, they didn't know what they was going to eat at supper because they didn't have no money and nothing. Because I was very my household, because we had so many, we were very systematic in everything we did. So I could tell her on Wednesday what we were going to eat. And she'd laugh at it. She said, you know what you got? Yeah, we're having hamburger steak on Wednesday. It's just like, it had to be with that bigger family and one bathroom, by the way. So, but anyway, yeah, I think that really saved me. And then as I got older, I told my son, this happened 11 years ago. I told him, I said, son, there's one thing you don't say in your last days. And he said, Dad, what is that? And I said, you don't say, I wish I'd worked more.
Yeah.
You never say that. It's just always going to be somebody take your place. And I've been very extreme. I was going to sell my business, by the way, at that time, 10 years ago. My son had not been with me 20-something years, but he showed no interest in taking it over. But he did. And really, that's another blessing from the pandemic, because our business was doing good, and he had to think outside the box to keep the thing afloat. And stand with him for 6 months and help him do that. And I told him, I said, you're going to learn more about yourself in this business during this period of time you did in the last 30-something years here. So, but we all know, I've lived long enough to know, you learn life lessons from adversity. Yeah. And that's kind of like gardening. Gardening teaches that. If you have something go wrong in the garden, I mean, trust me, I talked about it in the book, every season's different. Yeah. Everything's blooming. Normally this particular time, I don't have this many flowers blooming. I'm a week to 10 days ahead here in the South. But every year is different. But this is my wife don't understand it. I'll come out here and work 3 hours. I'm right out here in the garden. She can see me. I'm not running around playing golf or fishing. I've done all that. But I'll come out here and it's good physical exercise. It's good. I get to mix with people. Just, I don't know. They come to this fence up here and say, we love your garden. And the next thing you know, we're talking about Granny's garden, where they come from Indiana or wherever. So it's been a good social thing for me. And early on in my, even being in business, I wasn't really outgoing as much as I am today, and I show more grace with people, which I think we all need to. And I talk about that in the book about, I have terminally ill people come to this garden, got 2 weeks to live. Got to show some grace there. And they'll apologize 100 times. Oh, we come unannounced. I said, listen, this is for the public. I don't grow these for myself. I grow these to share. And so this is a safe place. This is a safe place to come. And they come here. And that's one of the things I might write another book about, is about the cause and effect of this hobby on people, which I mentioned in the book some, but that's a driving force for me, because it thrills me to death if somebody picks this hobby up and share that, like John Winter. He's sharing his knowledge he's mentoring people now.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable for him. If you knew him, and John, you talked to him, Paul, he's a corporate guy. I mean, he was marketing director for Tractor Supply. Yeah. I mean, big wheel, man, I'm telling you. And, but came unbelievable friend. I didn't think I'd ever meet a man. And that's another thing that this hobby does. It joins people from all walks of life. I have a heart surgeon comes to my open garden. I've mentored them in growing roses. And they'll come, lawyers or professional people. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a common theme here. We all love flowers. We all love roses. And I think that anytime you can connect with people, my grandparents did, and my dad would connect with the whole neighborhood, the community, through his gardening. So I was able to carry that on. But to me, the question of relieving stress, I think it does. It really does. And then I get on, when I go do a presentation, I just get on a total. And my kids, they walk in here, they say, Dad, when you going to downsize? When you going to downsize? When you going to get something smaller? When you going to do this? And, I may have to do that, and I'm smart enough to know that. But now, tomorrow. But now I'm going to continue this as long as I can do it. I've started to get a little bit of help. I've got one employee that loves gardening. He came over here on Saturday and helped me mulch and stuff like that. I mentored him right along while he's helping me. So I'll carry it on as long as my health lets me do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Ron. I mean, so many of the things you're saying are embodying and communicating the essence of an emissary author, which is what makes you a great one, right?
Let me tell you one up story that will tie into the business world. I had this man. This was before I even had the book. This is a couple of years ago. I had this man. He must have been between 80 and 90. He come up to me after my presentation. And he said, "Sir, that was a great presentation." He said, "Are you still working?" I said, "No, I just do this now." He said, "Well, you're doing the 3 things that you need to be doing at your age." And I said, "What's that?" He said, you're around people. Think about this, guys. You're around people. You're teaching, and you're solving problems.
Yeah.
He says, that's the 3 things you do in the work world. I said, and he'd retired from 2 different jobs. I mean, he said, but you were doing the 3 things you did in your construction business.
Mm-hmm.
You was around people, solving problems, and you're continuously learning. And I think if you whatever you transition into from retirement, and I've golfed, I've fished, I'm a sports nut. I'll go to the Titans games. My dad was a coach, so I'm really into sports, and I played sports. But you can only do so much of that. You know. So, like I said, this has filled that void from the construction business to here. And funny thing about it, my youngest son, who I go with him once a week and look at jobs. I went with him yesterday for half a day, and I still own the company, still stay connected to it through him. But it's funny, he turns 55 next week, and he's starting to turn into, said, "Dad," he said, "I understand what you're doing now."
Yeah.
They're doing this hobby. I said, "I thought you was over the top for years. I thought you was a nut." I said, "But I'm understanding it more. I'm going to have something when I transition out of this company." I said, "You're right." And he's into cards. He has, y'all, it'll blow you away, but he has a $2 million collection of cards. I'm talking about LeBron James card. I mean, he goes to these shows. That's his hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And he bought his wife a car the other day, sold a car, paid cash for it.
Yeah.
So, he don't borrow any money. Son, that's your hobby right there. When you get out of it, there, and you make a whole lot more money. I don't make no money in roses, anything, but on my books and all. And I'm getting pretty close to breaking even on my cost.
Yeah.
So that was my goal, to write it, record it, and try to break even on it. But anyway, it's really been a good life thing for me, and some of the people around me, my family, are seeing a lot more than they did in the beginning with it. But you can't hide passion, you can't hide desire. If you got it, it's going to show up somewhere. And anybody that has learned something, they share that. When I go to presentations myself, and I get a lot of CEUs. I go and listen to. I have to keep my Master Gardener certificate. I can tell the ones that's got passion, and the ones that hadn't. Just going through the motions.
Yeah,
it's easy to find. And you'll get criticized for it. Because they think that's the only thing you are. That's how you exist. Yeah, it's part of my life. But I love people, and I love to teach. I've got friends that's a lot better gardeners than me. I've got a rose buddy who grows 600 roses. He said, "Ron, ain't no way I'd ever go out and do that, what you do." I said, "Well, you got the knowledge. Why not?" "Oh, I just couldn't do that. I just couldn't go and do that." I have professional people, architects I deal with, that tell me all the time, he said, "I couldn't do that. No way." Yeah. So, but I had that desire for it and the passion, and it comes off. And I just love it. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to continue as long as God gives me the health, the mental, and that's another thing, the emotional and mental health it gives you in gardening is so refreshing.
Yeah.
About during the pandemic, but day to day it is too.
Oh, yeah. Well, as we bring this in for a landing, Ron, I'd like for the audience to hear, since you are, the original, the OG of Emissary Authors.
This morning, I did not know that. But I feel privileged because anytime you're beginning, it's always good.
Yeah.
And you guys are a great team, and y'all gonna do great things. I can just feel it. You're gonna do it, and you both have passion for what you're doing. And hey, it's like Aaron Walker. You know what? Aaron Walker has been working since he was 14, 15 years old, but you get around him and you get kind of on a,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd like, yeah, I can do that. He's a great coach.
Yep.
He's a great coach, and I just love listening to him. I've been able to listen to him in our local church. He helped kind of restore our church after God pruned it. He was at the right place at the right time. But anytime I've ever seen him, he's always got an encouraging word for me. And that's, we all look up to certain people, and he's not perfect. He'll be the first one to tell you that. But hey, nobody's ever going to accuse him of not having passion. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
He's the king of it. I'm telling you.
So let's finish with this, Ron. I'd like to hear, what's different for you having gone through the process with us of writing and publishing and promoting your book? Like, what's the big change that you could say, if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have this?
Well, I kind of looked at y'all, and Paul, you may remember this you guys have got, y'all taught me. I mean, you taught me what this business is about. Even though I was paying you, I knew all that, but you taught me and coached me up through the whole process. And I don't know if you remember, Paul, I said, Paul, tell me why. Why are we doing this? Why are we saying this? Jason, why are we using this cover? Why are we illustrating like this? I mean, for me, it was an educational thing. It's something I knew nothing about. I thought books were written like Hemingway. You got a bottle of whiskey and went to South Florida and got in a house and a typewriter and wrote a book. I didn't know we could do all this on Zoom, and you could interview me all these times and pull this story together. So I tried to learn from it, and I did. And when I'm able to refer y'all to somebody, I halfway know what I'm talking about. Like Larry, I said, Larry, you need to get this down. I said, this stuff's my goodness, you've had all this experience, and I wrote a gardening book. I mean, I may change a few people's lives, but what you're doing is, it's life changing. It is. They need to know what you've been through. And so I think more than anything, y'all educated me about this, about doing this, about it's not painful. It's not that painful to go through. I don't have to sit in front of a laptop and write this stuff, every little thing, No. So I think that people look at it like, I have nothing to say. You live long enough, you got a story.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in there is a story. Y'all look for it every day. I like to see you guys do more things that have to do with hobbies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Y'all do a lot of business and spiritual books, which I love, and I read them. I get something from them. But, I think, Paul, we talked about this before, and Jason, about people transitioning from a career into something other than, playing golf is good and fishing is good. I missed that 2 or 3 times, but if you do enough of that, you'll get fat. And I love golf and I love fishing, but they're sitting most of the time.
Yeah.
So gardening gives me that physically, and I have nothing against people to do that, but you can only play so much golf. You only travel as much as your money will let you.
Yeah.
So you need something to fill that void. But I think you guys, what y'all did to narrow it all down, through the whole process, y'all educated me. And that's the secret. Just like buying mutual funds. If you don't understand them, don't buy them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So y'all made it easy enough for someone like me, a layperson, that never written anything other than a contract, for a proposal or something for a job, to make my dream come true, to write this book and have this stuff. I got tickled. My daughter, she said, Dad, who you leaving that book to? And I said, you've got my publishing rights. It's already in my will.
Mm.
And the boys were all right. that because they knew she had helped me through this process and helped us, didn't she, Paul?
Sure did.
Us through the whole process. So I wanted somebody to have it, loved it, and not that the boys don't appreciate what I do, but she.
Well, now
really
she wants to write a book of her own. I've talked to her.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So I think the main takeaway here is through this whole process, you educated me. Larry said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so I think I'd like to see you guys write some more books in that area. That, like, I think the best books, are people that's been through it and then can teach you something through the book. And y'all do that. Most of y'all's books are like that. But like I tell Larry, I said, Larry, my book's gardening. It's light. He said, well, you affect people. I said, no, not like you. I mean, that book is powerful. I mean, that's just powerful because that's real life. That's people that defended our country, like you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
You was in the military. I'm sure you relate. I don't know about you, Jason, but as far as military experience, but closest thing I can come to it, I'm an Eagle Scout. So I respect them people. My dad was a military guy. Totally respect all first responders and military people completely. I don't care who they are. And I'm the Vietnam era, and I didn't go, but I had a physical problem. They wouldn't take me, believe it or not. And so, but anyway, I've enjoyed this whole experience with Emissary. The whole thing has been great. I can't think of any negative things. You guys are good. If I call you, Paul, or Jason will reach out to y'all for some opinions, and just like the advertising in ARS, I want y'all's input in that because y'all been part of it. I value opinion, and we were working on that this winter, and I want to thank you for following through with all that stuff, but Paul, you knew what I've been going through for a year to get to ARS.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my goals.
Took a while, but we got it done.
Said we're going to do it. And did y'all know that they vetted my book? They vetted that book.
Yeah.
They had 4 people read that book before I could even get in that magazine.
Yeah.
And then had one of the top ladies review it. That was awesome. So that goal accomplished, and hopefully we can see some results from that, and hope we have a vehicle to do that.
Yep.
To see if this magazine is how it's going to do, and if it's going, I think we'll probably be able to do that, right, guys? I mean, know how effective we are on book sales. So
we'll start to see some measurement from it for sure. If it does what it's supposed to do. Yeah. But for the purposes of this interview, Ron, this has been fantastic hearing all this background and all the things that have been going on. I know
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. I can see you guys friends, and somebody can reach out and get advice from, and that means a lot to me. Talk to other people that's written some books. They don't have this relationship. Yeah. They don't have it. I said, you mean they didn't do that for you? Well, they didn't answer that question. They got back with me. It was 3-4 weeks. I mean, you guys, you're on the right track for our service, and you think how I run my business. And I don't care if you spend $100 or $100,000 or $1 million. Every customer's important, and that's the way I taught my son to run our business. But this has been a great, great relationship, and hopefully some will inspire me, and we'll sit down again and write maybe a cause and effect of all this,
Good.
I got some more stories, as y'all well know.
I'm excited.
Great. Feel another book. My wife don't know this yet, so pray for me. My wife, bless her heart, she thought we was going to write this book. It's going to be sitting up on the shelf in there. When I come home and say, well, sold 30 books today. You did what? Sold 30 books today. And we had open garden last year, and we did 50, 60 books. She couldn't believe it. And we'll sell that many this spring. So I've got enough here to do that. So we'll see. Hopefully the weather will be good and people will show. I'm only doing it one day this year.
Yeah.
I'm already cutting back a little on making it more balanced.
More balanced. There we go. Well, the book is Rose Therapy. You can get it at rosetherapybook.com. Our author, the OG of Emissary Authors, Ron Daniels, joining us on the Emissary Authors Podcast, where we help faith-driven founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs tell the stories that matter. My name is Paul Edwards. My co-host, who barely said a word the entire time, Jason Todd. And this has been the Emissary Authors Podcast.
He's over creating.
I was just listening. Right. You said everything. You answered all the good questions. So It was good.
Thank you, Jason. I don't mean shy away from you, nothing like that, because I have a lot of respect for you because, you're part of this.
This is not my interview. This is about your book.
Okay.
Nobody needs to hear me.
Thank you.
But that's why we call him the thinker. He's over there thinking.
He's over there creating. Yeah. Well, I'll be calling on you some more. Y'all be my publisher as long as I'm alive. So, I always reach out to you for advice, and y'all always come through every time. So I appreciate both of you, not only as what you do for me as far as the book, but as people on all that. You're good people. And that to me, like Aaron Walker told me, he said, you're going to love these people.
Yeah.
He's usually never wrong.
Grateful for you, my friend. And until next time, we will see you next episode of the Emissary.
All right.
Authors
I'll try
Podcast.
to send you a video of my open garden. I'll get Caitlin to do a video and I'll send it to both of y'all.
Let's do it.
That way you can be here in video.
Love
That was
it.
a great idea.
See ya.
Bless you, Ron. See you.